Welcome friends, to another recap. The movie follows the gripping story of an astronaut who was presumed dead by his crew and left stranded on Mars, and his harrowing journey as he strives alone to survive on Mars. The movie begins with the Ares 3 mission on Mars exploring the planet's surface. Mark Watney is a botanist and mechanical engineer, in a crew of 6 astronauts led by Commander Melissa Lewis. They were collecting dirt samples for research purposes when they received a mission update about a sandstorm. They all get into their surface habitat on Mars, the HAB, and they see that the fierce storm is speeding towards them, threatening to topple their evacuation ship. The situation becomes increasingly severe, forcing the crew to evacuate. Watney suggests that they should wait and let the storm pass, but the commander orders an emergency departure. The violent storm suddenly hits them during the evacuation. The visibility becomes so low that they face trouble walking to the ship. And in this chaos, Mark Watney is struck by a piece of debris and separated from the group. He disappears into the storm and the signal from his suit is lost. The crew could not see him anywhere. The commander orders them to get into the ship, and she tries to find Watney for one last time. The crew, unable to locate Watney, assumes he has died. They ask the commander to get into the ship because it's leaning and wouldn't be able to launch if its angle exceeds 13 degrees. Commander Lewis reluctantly decides to leave him behind and goes into the ship, because if the storm knocks down the spacecraft, the other astronauts will also be stuck there and die. Assuming that Mark Watney has died, the crew evacuates from Mars without him, to their orbiting spacecraft, the Hermes. In the next scene, the director of NASA, Teddy Sanders, holds a press briefing and informs the world about aborting the mission and the unfortunate death of astronaut Mark Watney. Watney, however, has survived. He awakens to find himself alone, injured but alive, and realizes his dire situation. He gets into the HAB because his suit's oxygen level is dropping. He immediately pays attention to his wounds and treats them. After getting refreshed, Watney records a video message. In case he dies and NASA comes here, they might know that Watney survived during that storm while his crew left assuming him dead. He's recording this video because he has no way to contact NASA, as the communication system broke down in the storm, and even if he can make contact, it'll take 4 years for any rescue mission to come. But this HAB is made to last for 31 days of their mission, and the food supply is also for 31 days. So ultimately, he's destined to die here. Watney spends 2 days in deep despair and thought, but then decides he will not die here. And now he must rely on his ingenuity to find a way to signal to Earth that he is alive and can survive with a potential rescue. And he starts to figure out how to survive until his rescue is possible. He assesses the situation and measures his food supplies, which include only a meager amount of food, and he can survive on this for about 1 year if he ration. He realizes that his best chance of survival is to ration his available food supply until the next mission, Ares 4, arrives in about 4 years. So, to survive, he'll have to grow food for the later 3 years, on a planet where nothing grows. But luckily, he's a botanist and can figure it out. He starts rationing his available food, and he finds a bag of potatoes. He uses his resourcefulness as a botanist to grow food by cultivating a potato farm under a controlled environment inside the HAB, using Mars's soil and the crew's bio-waste as fertilizer. To tackle the excessive need for water for his crops, he creates water using leftover rocket fuel. He extracts the hydrogen from it and burns it to create water. But at first, his experiment results in an explosion. Watney says it was because of the excessive oxygen coming from his breath, and next time he repeats the experiment while taking care of this. This time he was successful, and the crops got enough water. Then a few days later, Watney sees that potatoes started to sprout. While on the other hand, NASA is holding a memorial funeral for Mark Watney. Vincent Kapoor, the director of Mars missions, meets Teddy and asks him for permission to use the satellites to see what of their assets are left on Mars. Vincent asks the satellite communication operative Mindy Park to get the images from the Ares 3 mission site. On reviewing the images, she notices some moved equipment that can only be done by an astronaut. So now, after about a month, NASA discovers Mark Watney's survival through satellite images. Teddy Sanders holds another press briefing, shocking the world with the revelation that Watney is alive. He then assembles a team to scramble a rescue plan and orders the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, to create a supply probe ship to send food supplies to Watney to sustain him until a rescue mission can reach him. Teddy gives Mindy total authority over the satellites to watch Watney's every move. He asks the JPL director Bruce to build the supply probe ship in half of the estimated time. Mitch, the flight director, says they should inform Watney's crew about his survival, but Teddy says the crew needs to concentrate on their mission. They will inform the crew once they have a viable rescue plan. Now it's time for Watney to reap the first harvest of potatoes and resow the plants. He believes now he can survive on this food for longer, but it won't help him survive if he can't make contact with NASA. One night while looking at the map of Mars, he finds a point that is the site of an old mission. On the next day, he starts driving the rover to that point. Mindy tells Vincent about this movement. By observing his direction, Vincent gets an idea of where Watney is going. After some time, Watney reaches that point, and there's nothing but sand. But then he steps on something solid. He digs out of the sand an old communication machine that was sent by NASA a few years ago, but it lost connection with Earth. He loads this machine on the rover to take it back to the hab. And by that time, Vincent has reached JPL where he meets director Bruce. The second part of that communication machine was operated from Earth. It is now kept in the JPL storeroom. Watney manages to repair this machine and establishes contact with NASA. He gets excited to get a reply from his home after living for about 4 months in loneliness. But yet, this communication is only based on camera-pointing signals. The engineers at NASA give him code instructions to deploy into the rover's operating system to link it with that communication machine. And then Watney starts having textual conversations with NASA. Vincent tells him that they are working on a rescue mission for him, and Watney says he's glad to hear that. But there's still no guarantee of Watney's survival. Watney's crew, who are on their way back to Earth not knowing that Watney has survived, hear the news about Watney's survival. The crew grapples with guilt over leaving him behind and starts worrying about him. Since Watney has now made contact with NASA, they ask him to give constant updates on his crops to analyze how longer these will last. Director Sanders looks satisfied with the estimates that they will get the supply mission on Mars before Watney runs out of food. But on Mars, Watney faces a setback, a breach in the habitat caused by a decompression event, which blows up the hab's airlock and it gets detached. All the air from the hab diffuses and the hab becomes exposed to Mars's atmosphere. Watney steps inside the hab and sees all the crops have died because of low pressure and temperature. Watney gets into the rover, feeling very disappointed with this unfortunate mishappening. NASA comes to know this through satellite images. They figure out that Watney now doesn't have food until the supply ship can reach him. So now they have to launch the supply mission as soon as possible to get him fed until the rescue mission. Watney cleans up all the hab and he closes the airlock using plastic sheet and tape, involving the risk that it may not work. But fortunately, it works out. Teddy asks Bruce to complete the supply ship as soon as possible. He also orders to cancel the routine safety inspections to save time, because the inspections are unlikely to reveal a problem. Watney is now stretching out his food supply by dividing one day's meal into 3 days to stay alive until NASA sends him more food. He uses a pain reliever capsule to season the potato because he has no more ketchup left. Finally, NASA is ready to launch the supply mission for Watney. The rocket lifts off successfully, and everyone becomes happy about achieving this milestone. But soon after rising to some altitude, the ship tumbles out of control and explodes. Teddy and Vincent appear in an interview about the failure of the supply mission, and some scientists at the Chinese Space Agency watch this interview. They say that they can help NASA get the supplies to Mars using Chinese technology. Teddy gets excited to hear about the help they're getting from the Chinese, and Bruce starts creating another ship to send the supplies. During all this rush, a scientist named Rich Purnell comes to meet the rescue team. He proposes them a better plan to rescue Watney, which involves the crew of the Ares 3 returning to Earth to perform a gravity assist maneuver using Earth's gravity to slingshot them back to the Red Planet, to be picked up by the Hermes spacecraft. This way they can reach Watney 2 years before the Ares 4 mission. He says Watney's crew can fly by around the Earth and catch the supplies, then head towards Mars, and the crew will easily be able to rescue Watney by catching him in Mars's orbit. Mitch says the crew will be ready to do this, but Teddy says they will not risk the lives of the crew and rejects this plan. Mitch secretly sends this plan to the crew, and tells them they can rescue their friend. Commander Lewis asks everyone if they are willing to follow this plan because it will extend the duration of their mission. Everyone is determined to help Watney because they think it was their fault that he left behind. They decide to execute this daring rescue mission defying NASA's orders, and embark on the journey back to Mars. They change the direction of their ship and inform NASA that they are going for Watney. And now NASA is forced to send a supply to the crew instead of sending it to Watney. Despite numerous challenges and setbacks, the resupply mission is launched successfully this time, with the cooperation of the Chinese Space Agency. Meanwhile, Watney prepares for his journey to travel to the Ares 4 mission's landing site, which is thousands of kilometers away. He modifies the Mars rover to transport him and the necessary equipment for the journey. The Ares 3 crew executes the complex gravity assist maneuver and performs a high-speed flyby of the Earth, accommodating the supply probe with them. 7 months later, Watney leaves the HAB to go to the Ares 4 mission site. He drives for hours, then recharges the rover's batteries and repeats this process to keep moving because he has a long distance to cover. And it takes him around 50 days to reach his destination. But now another problem comes in the way. Hermes spacecraft cannot enter Mars's orbit without using the fuel that they need to reach back to Earth. So Watney will have to escape the gravity of Mars in that Ares 4 ship, which is only designed to travel to the lower orbit. To do so, Watney has to make the ship lighter by removing some non-essential and even essential parts of it. Watney follows their instructions and removes these parts of the ship, including the top airlock. Then he covers it with the HAB canvas. He prepares for his journey to return home and meet his friends and family, and of course to say goodbye to Mars. He mounts into the ship, locks the doors and gets ready for extraction. Commander Lewis asks him if he's ready for the launch, and Watney affirms. A lot of people gather at NASA Space Center and at the Chinese Space Center as well, to listen to the good news of Watney's rescue. The crew launches the ship, and while it's traveling without any airlock, Watney passes out due to a lot of pressure. Meanwhile, the crew estimates the distance and the relative velocity of the incoming ship, which turns out to be high in numbers. Watney regains consciousness and Commander Lewis tells him about the problem they're having. They are flying at a longer distance and at different speeds. Watney says he can make a hole in his EVA suit's glove and use it as an improvised thruster to get to the spacecraft. Lewis forbids him to do this, but she uses this idea on the spacecraft to reduce their speed by exploding the valve with a bomb. But Watney is still very distance apart. So Commander Lewis comes out of the spacecraft using a tethered maneuvering unit to pick up Watney, but she can't reach him because the rope isn't long enough. In this nail-biting sequence, Watney launches himself into space with his suit's punctured glove as a thruster and uses the escaping air to propel himself, flying like Iron Man, and successfully reaches Commander Lewis. Ultimately, the crew manages to retrieve Watney successfully, and Commander Lewis informs NASA that they got him. Everyone at NASA and the people in the streets become overwhelmed with joy to hear about the success of the rescue mission. Watney is joyfully reunited with his crew on the Hermes spacecraft, and the crew also becomes happy to see him among themselves again. After returning to Earth, Watney is seen addressing a classroom full of aspiring astronauts, sharing his experiences and emphasizing the importance of perseverance, problem-solving, and human resilience in the face of challenges. All the students raise their hands to ask questions, but the movie closes on the scene, because it will take ages to answer all these questions. Thanks for watching. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more such interesting videos. Thanks for your support.